I've played video games since I was probably 5 years old. My first console was a Nintendo, and the first video game I remember playing was Mario Brothers. I've always loved games that are challenging enough to keep you engaged, but fun enough to not be stressful. Fast forward to 2014, and I was reveling in the brilliance of Xbox 360 games like Skyrim, Mass Effect, Borderlands, and Arkham City. Then one day a game called Dark Souls appeared as one of the free games of the month. I had never heard of this game, but I love fantasy RPGs, so with nothing to lose, I downloaded it and began my journey. Except I hated it, with a passion. I could not for the life of me understand why anyone would want to play this bleak, depressing, unimaginably difficult game. I enjoyed the combat system and the customization, but it wasn't enough to offset my issues with the game. So I decided Dark Souls was not for me. I uninstalled it and forgot about it for years. Around 2017, I had an Xbox One and was at a bit of a gaming slump. I had already beaten The Witcher 3 twice and was starting to wonder if maybe that was the greatest game I would ever play and that nothing could even come close. So I perused my games library for an RPG worthy of my time and came across Dark Souls once again. I had forgotten about it entirely and my hatred towards it, but I decided that maybe I judged it too harshly at first. After all, I didn't like The Witcher 2 when I first played it, but it ended up becoming one of my favorite Xbox 360 titles of all time. So with a renewed energy for a good challenge, I reinstalled Dark Souls and continued where I had left off, which was barely into Undead Burg. Now this time I actually made some progress. Some. After dying more times than I will admit, I finally made it to the Taurus demon, and it destroyed me for hours. I actually began to question if I was even supposed to defeat it, or if it was like the first fight against the Asylum demon, where you have to escape and return to it later in the game. Every time my character pushed through that fog into the boss fight, my hands literally started sweating, and my heart rate began to rise. Facing the Taurus demon was terrifying. But by remembering pre-established gameplay mechanics like the plunging attack and the fact that I had firebombs, I finally beat that hairy bastard, and the feeling of accomplishment was incredible. I was starting to understand that perhaps the problems I had with the game were actually problems with me. I had given up too fast, succumbed to the crushing difficulty of a video game that respected the player's intelligence and skill more than any other game I had played. I could do this. I could actually beat this game. It was possible. So I carried on and was starting to really enjoy Dark Souls until I came to my next nemesis, the Bell Gargoyles. Oh, for God's sake, there's 2 of them. 2 bosses. And not just that, but they breathe fire, their axe swings have a gigantic radius, and each hit takes about 1/3 of my health. So once again, I was stuck. And I'm fairly certain I died to them more than just about any other boss in the entire game. It seemed that every time I closed in to attack, I was hit either with a fire blast or a massive swing of their axe tails. It took me weeks to realize that if you restore your humanity, you can summon Solaire to help you with the fight. I hadn't realized this because I died so often that I was almost always hollow. But now there was hope. I pressed on with the help of an NPC friend. I defeated the Bell Gargoyles, which was accompanied by me loudly yelling victory in my living room. So with all that exposition, what am I really trying to say here? I'm trying to say that Dark Souls is more than just a mere video game created to make money. It's more than a good fantasy role-playing game. Dark Souls, from the minimalist story right down to the gameplay mechanics, is a metaphor for perseverance through tribulation. Every boss you encounter seems insurmountable at first. They are all gigantic, larger-than-life creatures, whereas you are just a human, small and insignificant. And not just that, but even the weak grunts can quickly destroy you if you're not careful. But here's the thing. You can beat them. There is always a way to defeat the monsters that seem invincible. Sometimes it's through self-improvement by suffering the consequences of your mistakes. Sometimes you need to lean on your friends for support. But most importantly, the only way you can ever win is if you never stop fighting. When you see the beast that's in your path, don't run away. Face it voluntarily despite your fear. If you fail at first, identify what you did wrong and don't make the same mistake again. But don't give up. Don't go hollow. Because it's only through our perseverance that we regain our humanity. Last year I finally beat Dark Souls for the very first time, and I truly couldn't believe that I had actually done it. Before I thought to myself I could never beat that game, it's just too difficult. But by playing Dark Souls I learned quite a bit about myself. I learned that I thrive on a good challenge, and that overcoming it is one of the best feelings that you can have. To those who don't play video games, it may seem like I'm reading too much into my experience, but to me, video games are an art form, and pure art resonates with us because it speaks to our souls. Dark Souls did that for me, and if you haven't played it before, give it a try. I'm glad I did.